Today, we will be discussing Chapter 5 or Lesson 5 from the Life Science Health System. And this lesson is entitled Introduction to Nutritional Science. So it's all about nutrition today. And it's a little bit ironic and synchronous that today the United States government drops their new nutritional guidelines. So this is a great synchronicity. We will look at the Department of Health and Human Services new food guidelines for Americans that just dropped today when we get to the part about RDAs, recommended daily allowances. You know, who makes these recommendations and how do they get their data? A note before we dive into the text, how you can access the text. So there's a couple different ways. If you're on a browser, you can just type into your browser terrain.wiki. That's it. No .com, just terrain.wiki. And it will bring you to this website. And you want to go down here and click on the second link under Getting Started, which is bold. It says the Life Science Health System, TC Fry. Click that and boom, there are the 101 chapters. And so since we're doing number 5 today, Introduction to Nutritional Science, click on it. And there it is. All these headings of chapters and subchapters are linkable, clickable. So if you want to skip right to condiments or drugs, boom, there we go. You can zoom your text, zoom out just like on any browser. So this is convenient for people to read on their phone. It might be more convenient than accessing the PDF. Now you can download the PDF, which is also fully searchable. The PDF's more searchable than this because this one, you can search per page. So once I'm in chapter 5, I can do Command F and search for the word cooked. The 28 instances of that. But it's not showing you anything outside of chapter 5. So if you want to search the entire Life Science Health System, what you do is you download the PDF. To download the PDF, go to sethbalin.com/library. And then in the section titled Natural Hygiene, you will find the Life Science Health System. This is a 2,300 page PDF. So it's a little large compared to other PDFs, but there it is. Fully linkable, searchable, downloadable, keep it on your device, but also always keep terrain.wiki in your back pocket because you never know when you're going to be out and you want to read something or look something up and you just have your phone, you don't have the PDF downloaded, just go to terrain.wiki and you can find it there. So anyways, this is our reading material of the day. Actually, of the season, we've been reading this. We've been reading chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. Check out the School of Unlearning YouTube if you'd like to listen to my presentations on the first 4 chapters. They're lumped together in pairs, but right now we're just doing one chapter at a time, chapter 5. Next week, we will be discussing chapter 6, which is one of my favorite chapters, the immense wisdom and providence of the body. Such a cool chapter. But today, let's not get ahead of ourselves. All right, Life Science Health System, Chapter 5, Introduction to Nutritional Science. And we have a great couple guiding questions for this chapter. While we study it, I want you to ask yourselves, first, what is nutrition? How would you define it for yourself? How would you define nutrition? If somebody asked you, what do you mean by nutrition? What would you say? The common definition, if you just look it up on Google or whatever common dictionaries out there, it'll probably say how we incorporate and assimilate food substances for health. And it's focused just on food. After all, nutrition, the word comes from the Latin. I think it's nutrio or something like that, which means food or feeding. So most people liken nutrition to the science of how food feeds us and how our bodies are supported and sustained through food. Natural hygiene and life science, however, they define nutrition much more broadly. In this chapter, we are going to explore some non-food nutritional elements. that are worthy of consideration. So by the end of the presentation, maybe we'll develop a better definition. What is nutrition? And after your careful consideration, I'm asking if you could develop your own definition, one that would be different than ours. It's okay to have differing ones. The second guiding question was asked by one of the Radical Health School members. And she asked this. I'm going to read her whole question. It's really good. And that'll be one of the guiding questions for the week. I'm doing a project to discover why and when natural hygiene went from raw food only to supporting cooked foods over the years, as is seen in the National Health Association, which is the new name for the old Hygienic Society in the US. Somewhere along the line, natural hygiene adopted a raw food only stance, which was then lost in some places. The natural hygiene conferences of later years were cooked food starting showing up to mixed reviews of attendees, some liking it, some old school shocked to see cooked food. Do you know when the 100% raw entered the natural hygiene picture? Was it in the 1960s or so with T.C. Fry, who would have been rejecting previous natural hygiene teachings? So that's a great question from one of our members. Thank you for asking it. Those are great questions, and we're going to get to them. So, right off the bat, what constitutes nutrition? Nutrition, according to life science and natural hygiene, is the sum of all processes that promote growth and function. Nutrition does not mean food only. Nutrition is the sum of all the processes that supply, develop, and sustain an organism's faculties and functions at the optimal level of existence. So, the sum total of all the processes that supply and develop and sustain an organism's faculties and functions. In short, nutrition is the total of all that supplies life's needs. So obviously, in this definition, there are non-food factors like human connection, energy and stress levels, air quality, things like that. And so food is a part of it, but it only constitutes a part of the needs of life. They do zoom in here a bit on food. Food is an inert substance. Foods, this is very interesting. This is a unique natural hygiene philosophy and part of the terrain model or terrain theory, you might say. Many people believe that foods have different actions in the body. However, according to natural hygiene, this is erroneous. Foods do not act in the body, but are instead acted upon by the body. Can you wrap your mind around this? It took me a sec years ago when I first heard this. What do you mean that turmeric doesn't create the anti-inflammation in the body? What do you mean the turmeric doesn't reduce inflammation? You know, I thought that's what turmeric did. Oh, this echinacea golden seal, it spurred my body to heal. It boosted my body. People say this all the time. But according to these guys, no, the body's the only thing that does the action. It will always react to what's put in it. So the body is reacting to the lemon. The body is reacting to the turmeric and black pepper or whatever. The body is creating a certain reaction based on what it is given. So they really emphasize this, that food doesn't act on the body. The body acts on the food. Nutrition is a vital process carried on only by a living organism. So nutrition is not a process that goes on in dead or inanimate things. It's a process. He says nutrition is dependent on function. We can have better nutritive function only when we have a capacity for better nutrition. Food is of value in its physiological connections with air, water, sunshine, rest, and sleep, exercise or activity, cleanliness, and wholesome mental and moral influences. All the natural circumstances which we know to be necessary for the preservation of health. So that's a very holistic view. I like that. I like this so far. They're really zooming out. And if there is a focus on nutrition, it's seen in connection and conjunction with all the other elements. And they repeat, food does not use the body or do anything to the body. The body does unto the food and uses it. Foods do nothing in the body. He says it again. They have no powers of cleansing, healing, or anything else. So that actually gives a lot of agency to the body. And that's what I love about the natural hygiene philosophy and practice, is that we really give the body its credit. We recognize how much of an amazing healer the body is in itself. People still might protest this. They might say, no, the grape cleanse that I went on healed me. The grapes healed me. Grapes are healing. I hear people say that all the time. But if your body could have done the same thing on a water fast, if your body could have kicked the same symptoms and shown amazing healing, just like the grapes did, which is very common. You see people reverse any type of disease with water fasting for the most part. Then what does that say about the grapes? Really, what does it say about the grapes? It says the grapes didn't do anything. The body healed itself, and you just simply ate grapes as you healed. This is debatable, though. What do you guys think? So a body that is impaired is unable to properly process and use food. So any way that we can help prevent our body from becoming impaired is good, and we'll have better nutrition that way. If our nerves are healthy and strong and have enough energy, enough to digest efficiently, that's great. Sometimes we have such low nerve energy that we can't even digest well. So that's why eating while tired is a no-no. Eating while stressed or emotionally stressed out is a no-no, because your body has too much stuff going on and it won't be able to properly process and use the food. Again, food is only one of the needs in nutrition. This is a spectrum we're looking at here, a spectrum of the organism's activities and conditions. So always zoom out and keep it holistic. Physiological criteria foods must meet. Every animal seems to have a particular food that nourishes them, or a particular selection of foods. Humans are very confused about this, right? Some people think that we're herbivores, some people think we're frugivores, some people think we're carnivores, some people think we're omnivores. What are we? Well, let's dig into it. There are herbivores, grass and vegetable eaters. There are grainivores. A lot of birds are grain eaters. Insectivores, frugivores, fruit eaters, many of the primates. And I would also say that humans are frugivores, physiologically adapted to a diet of primarily fruit. There are carnivores, animals that live on flesh of other animals. Now, there's also a subcategory of carnivore, because true carnivores eat their prey raw and fresh. They kill it too, usually. Then there's a necrivore. Vultures and humans are actually necrivores, those that eat meat, because they're eating an animal that was already killed a long time ago. Then there are omnivores that live off a mixed diet of everything. Now, we'll skip right to the answer to the test here. Humans are classified as frugivores. Why? Because we have the equipment to harvest and efficiently process only this one class of foods. Dr. Alan Walker, an anthropologist from Johns Hopkins University, talks about how for millions of years, humans subsisted solely, exclusively, and only on fruits. It's a little redundant, is it not? Solely, exclusively, and only? Maybe you could just pick one of those. And I think it's in this chapter they discuss, or might have been in the Art of Nature Cure I was also reading this week, that there had to have been a time of humans before the invention or discovery of fire. It's not like humans right off the rip, as soon as we got here, knew how to use fire. We had to have survived for some time before stumbling across that phenomenon, one would think. It's hard to tell what actually went down in prehistory. But according to the Bible, like I said, fruit is prescribed as our food. And according to nature, we would see that it would be the easiest thing to eat, harvest, collect, process, enjoy, and gain nourishment from fruit. Trust me, a field full of pigs or an orchard of mango trees. Field full of pigs. You can go run and catch them and kill them and eat them, salt them, cook them, skin them, bleed them, butcher them, all that. Or you can go and run and collect mangoes. What will it be? What will be the easiest? What will be the tastiest? It's not even close, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, here are the dietary requirements that determine the ideal food for humans. Foods must be non-toxic, so no element of the food which burns dirty or which poisons the body. Foods must be edible in the raw state. If it's good enough for every animal on earth, it should be good enough for humans, no? Foods must have sensory appeal. Fruits are extremely brightly colored, they smell good, they feel good on your hands. That's one thing I'm getting good at actually is sense data for my fingertips. And I can pick up a piece of food and it will inform me, it will give me feedback, and I can sense the energy just from my fingertips. I can pick up an unripe piece of fruit and I can pick up a ripe piece of fruit and my fingertips will tell me the answer. Yeah, obviously one's a little softer, but I think there's more subtle information there. I can pick up a non-food item and my body can sense that it's not food. Our fingertips and our eyes and nose are extremely powerful. I don't think we should forget that. Foods must be digested easily when eaten alone or properly combined. And if you've been on a fruit diet before, you know how easily fruits digest. At first, they may digest for you too easily. You're going to be in the bathroom a lot, but that's while your gut readjusts and establishes itself to something new. That might happen. It might be uncomfortable. But after a while, once you start having regular BMs that are clean, you will know the benefits and the ease of digestion that comes with fruit diet. Foods must be digested efficiently. So think about the nerve energy that it requires to harvest and digest a watermelon. Not much, because you bust it open and then you start eating it. And it tastes so good. There's very little resistance in your jaw. The fibers are soft. It goes down so easily. It's sweet. It's a joy to eat. We get happy from it. Happiness chemicals are released from our brain. Now let's go back to the pig example. How much nerve energy do you have to expend, not only to harvest it a lot, but then to digest it, to chew it up? You maybe want to cook it too. That takes a lot of energy, Now you're eating it, you're chewing it. It's just harder to chew. It's harder to swallow. It's harder for your body to break it down. It digests much slower. You can tell there's a spectrum of ease of digestion, also efficiency of digestion, and that fruits are way at the top. Everything else is below it. Meat is way down low. Meat is an unsuitable food. It is inefficient. And I just have to bring it back to, this. It's obvious because you don't like harvesting it. I'm going to tell you right now, you as a human being, you don't like harvesting live animals. If you do, it's because you've been conditioned to. But any normal, naturally settled human, emotionally square, never wants to kill a bird, never wants to kill a chicken, a mammal, especially a big mammal with a head this big, like a cow. That would be the most painful thing to turn into your dinner. Painful for you, but think about the pain that he has to go through or she has to go through, getting their throat slit. All right, not to get too dark with it, but meat is not suitable for humankind. Foods must have protein adequacy. Now, this is very interesting because, like I mentioned earlier, the new food recommendation guidelines just dropped, and they really push the protein angle. And we're going to look at that in a bit. But here they talk about how protein adequacy isn't about how much protein is packed into a thing. It's kind of about how much protein's not in the thing. We just need a tiny, tiny little bit. 25 grams daily. That's way less than the RDAs from the government, from your gym bro, influencer guy, friends, and way less than any American probably would tell you, unless they're already into raw food. This is important. We must not feel compelled to eat protein foods as such in order to achieve protein adequacy. So we don't need to eat overt proteins like nuts and seeds, meat, cheese, eggs in order to reach these needs, because every food natural to humans has about 4% protein dry weight, an ample amount to supply our needs. Furthermore, most of our natural foods contain the amino acids we need. So I still get asked all the time, what about protein? And I think I've developed a quick, easy answer that doesn't offend the person, because I can answer in a way that can offend somebody. I can answer in a way that's just funny to me, that's mocking the whole question. But I don't want to do that. I want to respect anyone who's asking a legitimate question. What about protein? What I say is, well, there's protein in every fruit and vegetable out there, every single one without exception. Furthermore, fruits and vegetables have amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein. And lastly, the recommended daily allowance for protein and our conception of how much we need might be way overblown. They hear those things and they look at me and they go, that makes a lot of sense, right? So we're starting to unlearn the protein myth out there. Our food still needs to have protein adequacy, but luckily every fruit and vegetable has protein in it. Foods must be adequate in vitamin content. So we'll see that when we cook foods, when we blend them, when we process them further, they lose vitamin content. So another reason why raw foods are the best. Foods must be adequate in mineral salts. And they differentiate between organic minerals, which are from plants, and inorganic minerals, which are like supplements or powdered rock. Non-food minerals. Natural foods must supply our needs for essential fatty acids. Essential fatty acids are unsaturated fats. They occur in practically every fruit, nut, seed, and vegetable in ample quantities. Natural foods must supply our needs for caloric values. So we need calories. Those with high monosaccharide content, a lot of simple sugars really, sweet fruits are at the top of the list in meeting these requisites. So if you try to go vegetarian or vegan or raw vegan and all you're eating is celery and lettuce, you're probably not going to hit your caloric needs. Focus on the fruits, grapes, oranges, mangoes, the rest, and you will have ample monosaccharides to keep you energized, to keep you fueled. Natural foods are water sufficient, so that meets our needs when we eat natural foods for water, and natural foods are alkaline in metabolic reaction. So even the acidic acid fruits, you might say, tomatoes, citrus, etc., they are alkaline in metabolic reaction, meaning once digested, there's an alkaline ash left over from all the potassium, magnesium, calcium, etc. Okay, here are the interesting non-food nutritional factors, because most people define nutrition as food only, but I like how zoomed out this is. No, sunlight, natural light, fresh air, oxygen, pure water, exercise, play, and recreation. Play, I love that. We need to smile, improvise, run around, have fun, be silly, and stop thinking so much. Rest and relaxation, sleep, emotional poise, other requisites of life. So it's very wide open. And general body conditions. So that's very interesting. Emotional poise is nutrition. Play is nutrition. Yeah, after if you play with your friends outside, it might feel very nourishing, like your soul was fed. The more you laugh, I think the healthier we become, because we relax and we shake things off. We allow easier flow of energy throughout the body and mind and heart. So keep these non-food nutritional factors in mind, because they're very important. And if you neglect any one of these, you might start seeing a decline in health. Okay, so the discussion of conventional nutrition teachings. Do RDAs represent our actual needs? A look at the basic 4 food groups and the eating practices of Americans. Now, this is very interesting because this document was published in the mid-1980s, I think mid-late 80s. There were recommended daily allowances for that time, which this document has used as a basis. Fast forward to 2026, where we are today, 40 years later, there's a new set of RDAs, there's a new set of guidelines. So we're going to look at all of it. Do the recommended daily allowances represent our actual needs? The short answer is no, because there's healthy individuals eating a raw diet of proper foods, and there's also people who eat the standard American diet who have health problems. So they actually have different needs. The needs of a healthy person eating a raw diet are much lower. Like, they actually have to eat less food. They can thrive on a fraction of the intake on which the RDAs are based for conventional eaters. So, short answer, no, the RDAs are not accurate. They're based on metrics for sick people, sick Americans, just like blood test values. Now, I'm not saying they're all wrong, but I'm saying they base them on a certain demographic of people, and that's the demographic of people that we don't want to really aspire to be, sad eaters. So we kind of have to develop our new nutritional standards here. So the 4 basic food groups back in the 80s were milk, meat, bread, cereals, and fruits, vegetables. And I'll tell you guys, not much has changed. That was a balanced diet in the 80s, milk and meat right up front. And we know there was industry involvement. We know the USDA, the big ag companies of, big milk industry, big dairy, big meat, they lobby for this type of stuff, and they get their people working in the Department of Health and Human Services. So there's a giant conflict of interest when it comes to these regulatory agencies and the companies they purport to regulate. So that's why milk, meat, and breads and cereals are dominating the guidelines for Americans in the 80s. So skip ahead to today. Let's go ahead and share. Okay, so this is the brand new website, realfood.gov, that just dropped today, an official website of the United States government. Real food starts here. Better health begins on your plate, not in your medicine cabinet. So guys, this is part of the Make America Healthy Again movement. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in the White House, the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. He's making a lot of big changes. He's auditing a lot of the systems, the food system, the drug and vaccination system. And all of his little congressional groups and his research groups that he's putting together, his subcommittees, they're all reporting back, America's sick. The data is clear. Well, that's freaking obvious. 50% of Americans have prediabetes. 75% of adults report having at least one chronic condition. 90% of U.S. healthcare spending goes to treating chronic disease, much of which is linked to diet and lifestyle. And so here they want to address diet and lifestyle. This is the 1992 food pyramid, just like what we mentioned. You got your meats, you got your milk, you got your bread, cereals, and you got your fruits and vegetables. There was a sparingly category at the top for fats, oils, and sweets, because that was such a huge part of the standard American diet back then. So they said that they were misled and that they need to re-examine this and that they're solving the crisis. So for the first time, we're calling out the dangers of highly processed foods, blah, 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 blah. And this is their new food pyramid guidelines for the United States. Look at this. Protein, dairy, and healthy fats. They are really promoting that. That's the first thing you see. I mean, we read left and right, top to bottom. So in the top left, you have a giant slab of a dead animal. Then you have a curdled brick of secretions of a cow. Then you have a dead roasted bird carcass, and you have what looks like ground flesh in a container. More chopped up flesh of a sea creature, a fried ovulation of a chicken, more secretions of another animal, curdled secretions, butter, oil, avocados, a couple nuts and seeds. Look how tiny and minuscule and insignificant those nuts and seeds look compared to all the other animal foods on that little section. So protein and healthy fats, they haven't got over that. And your vegetables and fruits. You got to put a little bit of truth in the lies, people, to make it palatable, to make it believable. And on the bottom, they have whole grains. So it's interesting. They actually inverted the pyramid. It's no longer a pyramid. And how interesting is this? The word pyramid. What does the word pyre mean? P-Y-R. Pyromaniac. Pyre means fire. And mid means mountain. Pyramid literally refers to the mountains and the mounds that ancient cultures used to fire sacrifice humans and animals. That's what pyramid means. Fire mound. Anyways, it's interesting to note the etymology of the word pyramid because it has to do with cooking animals alive, cooking humans alive. Fire sacrifice, the ancient practice that's still practiced today in the secular form of diet. Meaning, if you eat animals, you practice animal sacrifice. They had to die, they had to sacrifice for you to eat them. Oh, and then they tell you how much protein you're going to want to get. Target 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. This is old, outdated stuff, guys. I mean, it's not because the government's telling you today this is what you need, but this is stuff we were hearing years and years ago. As soon as I stopped listening to this protein requirement target, I got healthier. As soon as I cut like all the protein out of my diet pretty much and just ate the little bits that was in fruits and vegetables, I got so much healthier. 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilo of body weight is like between a half and 3/4 of a gram per pound of body weight per day. I'm 6 feet. I'm kind of a skinny guy, so I'm 150 pounds. How much protein would I then need according to the government? So between 75 and 112 grams of protein per day. That's a lot, man. They're telling me in the life science health system that I need 25 grams of protein per day. And what feels better based on my experience is the low requirement. Yeah, and they say you need 3 servings of vegetables and 2 servings of fruit. It is interesting to me that they put vegetables first, not fruit first. I'm going to go back to the pyramid. Look at that. Vegetables and fruits right at the top. Broccoli, peas, carrots, then a tomato, which is a fruit, but it's a vegetable fruit. Same with the butternut squash. It's a fruit, but it's a vegetable fruit. Lettuce, and then the colorful, sweet, delicious foods. Apples, berries, melons, oranges, grapes, bananas, right? And then some more carbohydrate foods of whole grains. So they're really pushing the protein, dairy, and healthy fats, they call it. But really, what's healthy about eating a corpse? Okay, I digress. Let's go back to the reading. So eating specified amounts from each of these daily groups is proclaimed balanced nutrition. In truth, it is a balanced market for the commercial food interests. So the reason why they're pushing all this meat, well, one of the reasons, because there's probably many, one of the reasons they're pushing all this meat, dairy, and eggs and all this stuff is because of the corporate interests. The people working in the big meat, big dairy lobbies, they made sure that this food, it gets promoted. It's not all a capitalist conspiracy because there might be an element of these people want us to be sick. I'm not sure. That's total speculation, but it's likely. Eating practice of Americans, suffice to say, Americans will eat anything. We really have to undo a lot to get from the standard American diet to the natural human diet. So they go into the origins of paradises and Edens, which are where you find orchards. Cultures with the AVA root, Va, Ava, Valhalla, and Avalon, refer to fruit. Avalon meant the land of apples. It's very interesting. And again, in the Garden of Eden, Genesis 1, fruit eaters. Now, how did we stray so far from our diet of physiological adaptation? In one word, I can sum it up as industrialization. The Industrial Revolution in the late 1800s really ramped up this factory style of our entire culture. And food was no exception. Food became factorized, canned, very cooked, and we completely lost track of what nature actually is. People all over the world do eat animals. There's no denying that many cultures out there live on animal fare. Some cultures, though, are vegetarian or eat very little meat. Wherever you look at cultures and their dietary practices of long standing, you find that people have adopted as foods that which they can most easily cultivate and harvest in their regions. So, local food diets. Now, they raise a question regarding evolution of humans. And I think since this is written, more people have been starting to question the theory of evolution. After all, it is another one of science's big pillars. And the big industry of science has been wrong many times, especially in this nutritional angle. So maybe we evolved as fruit eaters, but maybe we were created as fruit eaters. Now, when it comes to negative nutrition, what are the harmful foods and practices? Condiments, cooking, heavily processed, refined, and preserved foods, and foods that are just outright not designed for humans, like dead bodies or tree bark, things like that, things that are just too hard to chew and swallow. Or foods that don't taste good to us at all. There's some berries that taste amazing to birds that will poison us. So condiments are drugs. We really only eat them for their stimulating effect, for their flavor modifying effect, and for their preservation effect. So there's vinegar, salt, MSG, herbs. We would never eat these things as nutrition, like as food. We would never eat a condiment to provide our nutritive needs. Therefore, it's really just as stimulation, excitement to make an unpalatable food taste good. Cooking is pathogenic. Cooking deranges and destroys nutrients. Deranged nutrients become, via cooking, unusable substances that are toxic in the body. And then the body has to expend tremendously of its nerve energy to expel the offending substances and to clear itself of their contamination. So life science and natural hygiene are against cooked food. However, we're starting to get to one of the questions that was asked in the beginning. Cooked food can serve a purpose, especially for those who are not willing to give it up. So we have to meet people where they're at. And I think that's one thing that natural hygiene does well. And it says, listen, if you're going to eat cooked food, this is how you should do it. So they do get into the entire food combining element of this, which I really enjoy. Obviously, processed, refined, and preserved foods continue just to strip away the vital nutritive quality of food and denature it. Preservatives, I think, are one of the most pernicious additives to foods, especially the ones that fool you into thinking they're natural, such as sea salt or citric acid. We see sea salt in our food all the time. We're like, oh, yeah, it's totally natural. It's like the most natural preservative out there. But it's still a preservative, meaning it slows down microbial growth. It prevents microbial growth. So what do you think it's doing in your gut? Do you think it's promoting or stopping microbial growth in the gut? It's probably diminishing it, right? If salt makes it such that living bacteria don't like to live in the presence of salt, then it's probably going to do the same thing in your gut. And the citric acids and the lactic acids and all the acids and various synthetic preservatives, they might be even worse for the gut. So I think that's why a lot of people are walking around with a big gut, is because their microbial function, their gut microbiome has been decimated by all the preservatives that we're eating in pretty much all the foods out there. You go to any grocery store aisle, pick out any food item from a package, and 99% chance there will be salt or a preservative in there. Foods not suited to the human dietary. Meat. We would not survive very long on a meat diet, especially if it was well done cooked. Meat is not efficient for humans. Condiments are toxic. They're stimulating poison. They're not consumed for the nutrient content. They're not for humans to consume. Even herbs. Herbs aren't really suited for us because of their spicy nature. They're bitter. We can't make a whole meal out of them. So we should definitely go for some of the very tender and sweet vegetables and greens. Oily foods are not suited to our needs. Starches. We don't have a good capacity to digest raw starches. So we can't have a raw starch diet. And if you remember from earlier, one of the ways we know if it's good food for us is if it's edible in its raw state. So other animals that are starch eaters, they have starch splitting enzymes. And now we do have starch enzymes in our saliva. There's one called pitalin or pitalin. I don't know how you pronounce it. Pitalin. It breaks down starch before you even swallow it. It's in the saliva. And you can tell when you start chewing up a cooked potato or something starchy, a piece of bread or some rice, and you just chew, keep chewing, you'll notice it gets sweet. So those starches are starting to break down into simpler carbohydrates. While we can digest starches, some of them, grains and tubers, they require cooking and they're generally repulsive raw. And so they're just second or third rate foods. Humans cannot utilize milk in its raw or cooked state. I think some mothers who breastfeed might have to disagree with that. Maybe he means other animals. After a certain age, milk is not suitable for us anymore. Basically, any foods that must be cooked are third and fourth rate foods and should form no part of the dietary. This is the strict natural hygiene philosophy. Of course, in other texts, they do promote cooked food for people who are still in that boat because it's hard. It's idealistic and sort of unreasonable for most people to be like, oh, I'll switch over to a raw food diet instantly because we still have these attachments, these cultural proclivities and cravings and habits. It takes a long time to undo these. So if you want to move toward a raw food diet, my personal suggestion is to transition, to take your time. Take a couple of years and do it. Take more than a couple of years. But don't transition forever, right? Pick a time period that will help you slowly make changes and get to where you want to go. So dietary follies of health seekers. This is a very interesting section because it still applies today. Many health seekers believe food supplements are necessary because we have deficient soil. How often do you hear that? Oh, our soil is depleted. Soil's depleted. People have been saying this for a long time. However, you know that farmers build up their soil every year. Good farmers put down new, fresh, amazing soil each year. And they build it using biomass and organic inputs. So if you're getting food from farms and good farms, then there should be no worry that the soil is depleted. And if you grow your own food, you have even another level of control over the soil quality. One thing he's also saying in this is that even in the soils that aren't as quality, they still contain what they need to produce the fruit. So as long as you have the fruit, you had enough nutrients in the soil to support that fruit to full development. Health seekers often buy waste products that are sold as health products. An example of this is the beer manufacturer's waste product, brewer's yeast. Another example is molasses, the waste product of sugar manufacturers. So whey, liver, gelatin, and other wastes are thought to be healthful, right? In reality, they're worse than worthless. Tell them minerals from unusable sources, alternate schemes of drugging. People fall victim to this in the health space. They love herbs and toxic plants and things that are going to make your gut wrench in the name of healing, of course. Pernicious herbs, onions, and garlic. Drinking habits. So obviously, drinking of poison drinks is a no-no, but even drinking water can undermine your health. If it's too hard, if it has too many hard solids in it. And also, if you drink water while you're eating, you may dilute and prevent some of the digestion in your gut. Now, in 5.8, they go through the survey basically of different dietetic schools and their fallacies. So the macrobiotic school, what is that? A little bit of history. It's very much focused on cooked vegetables and the yin-yang concept, which is found in Asian cultures. Yin-yang, hot and cold, salty, sweet, polarities like that. But food is not very binary, is it? Supplementation and special foods. People think that if they get, an overdose of vitamin C, that all their problems are going to go away. There are the herbalists, people who swear by herbs. There are the vegetarians who eat a lot of cheese and eggs, but they're not eating flesh. They may be health-oriented or they may be animal-oriented. Something T.C. Fry also wrote elsewhere is that you need a good balance of both ethics for the animals and personal health nutrition. Two of those pillars are going to support a healthy lifestyle as a vegetarian or a vegan. And if you lack one of them, then you might easily be swayed and pushed from your decision to be vegetarian. The mucusless diet, we're very familiar with that. People still love the mucusless diet healing system, written by Arnold Ehret. And he talks a lot about transitioning away from mucus-forming foods into non-mucus-forming foods. There's a big level of overlap between natural hygiene and mucusless diet, or the mucusless diet healing system and a raw food diet, although they're not 100% the same. The Wehrlandes is also very similar to natural hygiene. A Swedish offshoot included various grains, albeit prepared in a more conservative manner. The fruitarians generally eat some nuts and vegetables in addition to primarily fruit. The most ardent of fruitarians eat exclusively fruit, and some do it for purely ethical reasons. Many fruitarians are natural hygienists, though many natural hygienists are not fruitarians. So the primary difference between the fruitarians and the fruit-eating hygienists is that many fruitarians do not adhere to principles of compatible food combining. Sometimes the fruitarians will just say, oh, if it's fruit, it's good, have at it, don't worry. But natural hygiene focuses much more on food combining rather than just eating fruit. Then there's natural hygiene. They advocate a mostly raw diet: fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and sprouts. Some advocate the eating of cheese, raw egg yolks, and today in the National Health Association, I think is what it's called, the new version of the Natural Hygiene Association, they promote cooked vegan food. Whole food, plant-based, you might call it. T.C. Fry tells us that life science and natural hygiene are identical philosophies. And just keeping the perfectionism in check, let's remind ourselves that anything less than ideal begets less than ideal results. But on the other hand, every improvement you inspire in your clients will result in corresponding improvements in well-being. So cooked food isn't always bad or the devil, especially if it's used in a way that's going to get you away from other foods, other worse foods. There's the food as medicine school. There's the juice therapy school. Norman Walker is a big proponent of that. I love Norman Walker, by the way. If you can find any of his books, definitely give him a read. Shout out Norman Walker. There is the blended salad diet fad. I guess that was just in the 80s. I haven't heard much of that at all. And in conclusion, T.C. Fry tells us that natural hygiene is the only one concerned with food combining, and it is the best diet based on physiological principles. And that is the diet we discuss here in the Life Science Health System. Raw food, primarily fruit, tender leafing greens, some nuts and seeds, some cooked food if you're going to eat it. But you don't need to. According to Life Science, cooked food is not necessary. It's destructive. So here is their section on food combining. I recommend reading this in detail. You can also read Herbert Shelton's book, Food Combining Made Easy. He goes deeper into that. Here he explains how starch and protein food should not be eaten together. It's because they have differing digestive needs and differing digestive chemistry. For example, starch needs an alkaline environment so that the amylase or the ptyalin enzyme can perform their digestive tasks on the starch. However, if you're eating protein, you need an acidic environment. It has to be low pH. And pepsin won't break down protein at a pH higher than 3. So he's saying you're screwed if you're trying to eat starch and protein together because they're not going to digest in the same environment. And digestion speed is a big thing about food combining. You don't want to eat two different foods with differing digestion times. So watermelon, which digests very, very quickly, leaves the stomach within minutes. And if you eat that with, I don't know, let's say an avocado or cheese or something, very much slower digestion time. Those two things are going to conflict. The watermelon may get backed up and ferment, cause gas and bloating and discomfort. So those are the foundations of nutrition, of food combining. According to T.C. Fry in the Life Science Health System, that is the natural hygiene approach for it. There are some miscellaneous questions and answers at the end, which we'll discuss right now. So another question on our true protein needs, which they contend is about 25 grams daily, much lower than we're told by the gym bros and the government. Now, it's so interesting to me because at the same time that this new government guidelines came out for food recommendations, we're also seeing a record number of deaths related to bodybuilding and excess protein intake, not to mention all the steroid and gear usage. I mean, look at the guy in the middle there. That protruding round gut is a sign of steroid use. So obviously these bodybuilders are doing unhealthful things to look completely jacked. And one of those things is to eat excess protein. Look at this headline. 56 bodybuilders died in 2025. The average age was just 35 and over 50% from heart issues. So they're pushing their hearts with the drugs they're taking and with the fat and protein content of the foods they're eating. So maybe the old gym bro science is outdated, people. Maybe this 1/2 to 3/4 of a gram per pound of body weight recommendation, maybe that's just way too much. I might do a whole video on what 25 grams of protein looks like of real food. 25 grams of protein of real food. Drugs are all poisonous. Correct feeding. He reiterates that foods do not act in the body, that all the action is from the organism itself. So a couple miscellaneous questions. Oh, B12. He says that our gut makes B12. Almost all cases of anemia and B12 deficiency occur in meat eaters, not in vegetarians. And these articles at the end are also worth reading. There may be some connection between man's choice of war as a way of life and his choice of flesh as a diet. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. As long as there will be slaughterhouses, there will be battlefields. In spite of his constant fighting, all the evidence points to the conclusion that man was originally a peaceable being. Now, people will try to tell me that humans are predators. And I tell them, well, I'm not a predator. Are you? And then they think about it and they try to explain that they are somehow because they pay for other people to kill and butcher the animals for them. And then I ask them, so you have bloodthirst? And they think about it and they think about the juicy puddle on the plate. And they say, yeah, but they're not thinking about what it truly means to have a bloodthirst as an animal is to be able to pounce on another animal, sink your teeth and claws into its neck and tear it apart. Eat it right there on the spot. That's real bloodthirst. That's real carnivorism. I mean, that's real omnivorism too. So if you're going to take anything away from this presentation on nutrition, maybe it should be that flesh is not human food. Obviously, there are more details that we should take away, like nutrition is more than just food, and that not all vegetables are meant for humans either. But if you can take one thing away and you need a nudge in one direction, and you eat close to the standard American diet, or let's say you eat like the way that the government is promoting today, cut out the flesh and see how you feel. Just cut out the dead bodies and see how you feel. Now, let's switch gears to the question that we got on school from Sharon. Okay, so if from a hygienic viewpoint, nutrition is a process of life, then when we think about the food that supports nutrition, we probably want living food, no? When we cook food, does it deaden the food? Well, yes. You can't put a cooked almond into the ground and expect it to grow. Raw foods still have their living properties. You can take a tomato, literally throw it in the dirt, and new tomato plants will pop up from it because of all the seeds in there. But if you took a cooked tomato and you put it in the ground, nothing will happen because it died. So it's a given that cooked food is dead food. The natural hygienists promote eating cooked food only when the person that they're advising won't give up cooked food, chooses to eat it because they feel like they need it, or they really don't want to give it up, or they need time to transition. This is where I attempted to answer Sharon's question from earlier about when did 100% raw enter the natural hygiene picture. And I wasn't satisfied with my answer, so I'm going to attempt it again. Now, it's actually a very tough question to answer, and I've given it some more thought. It's tough because 100% raw has simultaneously always been a teaching of natural hygiene, and it has never been a teaching of natural hygiene. Now, hear me out. It always has been a teaching because natural hygiene recognizes that raw food only has life force in it, that cooked food and processed food doesn't. So the best, most optimal option for us is the raw living food that's tender and delicious. That's recognized. But I'm not sure if there's a teaching that says you must only eat raw food to heal, or that you have to. There's always an allowance for conservative cooking. That's one of the chapters in Shelton's book, The Fine Art of Food and Nutrition. And it's smart to have that type of allowance because you're going to have clients, if you work with people, if you're, a practitioner and you help people heal themselves, you're going to have to figure out ways to allow them to cook food because most people don't want to adopt a 100% raw food lifestyle. Now, you might, I do. It makes the most sense, right? It's God's food. The food is done. It's prepared. It's ripe on the vine. That's the ideal food for man. I mean, that's the Garden of Eden right there. And there's no doubt in my mind that you can subsist on, very few high quality plant foods. But even Fred Bishy, who's a 96-year-old raw vegan, who's been a raw vegan many decades, I believe, has clients who he coaches to get better and to experience better health. And he doesn't push the raw food lifestyle because he knows that people don't want to do it, most people. So you have to figure out ways to allow it. And I think that's what natural hygiene stance always has been. That's what I mean by it's never been a stance. It has and it hasn't, right? Only raw food is going to get you to like the peak levels of health, maybe. But I'm not even sure if that's true. I think natural hygiene is so zoomed out and holistic, even in this chapter of nutrition, listing all the non-food items. And that's not even all of them. There's so many more. You know, a relationship with God, I believe, is one I didn't mention last night in this recording, but a relationship with the creator of this universe, in my opinion, is extremely important for health. Life starts to feel different in a good way when you just have a relationship, talk and thank, for what you have and for what he's given. That can be more healing than anything sometimes than food or what food you leave out. And it's also about how much you eat, and in what state of mind are you eating. So natural hygiene recognizes that there's so many variables. I'm going to go back to my analogy of the mixing board where there's all these faders and each fader represents an input in your life. So food may be one, or cooked food may be one, real food might be another fader. And you have a lot of one, a lot of the other, or a little bit, you move the faders, stress levels up, down, sleep levels up, down. The more those faders are cranked up into the red, you're clipping the master bus, the master fader, and the lights are hitting red. And that's where your body is overloaded with toxin and depleted of nerve energy. And you have a healing crisis, perhaps. Natural hygiene recognizes there's all these faders, and they know that you can just pull all of them down, and you don't even have to bring the cooked food one down to zero. That's the thing, is that natural hygiene recognizes that you don't even have to bring the knob all the way down to zero because you can bring all these down. Okay. And then there's a healthy level here on the master bus. You're not clipping anymore. Your body can handle things. Your body can handle toxin. That's not an excuse to eat cooked food. I think it's still an allowance. I'm still using that verb because it's fitting. So conservative cooking, temperance in diet in general, not overeating, will help you live long and be disease free. I think so. That's my answer. I'm curious to hear what you have found in your research. You said you're doing a project on this. I really want to know who is teaching the dogmatic 100% raw thing, because there are a lot of teachers who claim 100% raw, or you might hear fully raw. People claim fully raw all the time. And what confuses me about that is that these people are eating protein powder, cooked cashews or cooked nuts, and various vinegar sometimes, maple syrup sometimes is very cooked, or like supplements or preservatives. Some so-called raw vegans, fully raw vegans out there are eating preservatives openly. And some hide it, some do it and hide it. So I wonder who out there is teaching a 100% raw only approach. I know many people live that lifestyle, but who is teaching it to the masses? Because TC Fry sort of is. He sort of adopts that stance in the life science health system. Raw is the way to go. Raw is law. But it is a bit dogmatic because I don't even know if he practiced that in his lifetime. That's the thing. He did for a time experience the benefits, learned it experientially, and then he would waver back and forth. And I think he died in ill health. So what is 100% raw? What does that even mean? Can you live a fully healthy lifestyle with a tiny bit of cooked food? Is there a way to cook food that is more healthful? That's my answer. Anyways, thank you so much for asking the question. It's very thought-provoking. And, I thought I had a ready answer, but it keeps kind of changing and morphing, and I'm not really sure um, if I even did a great job answering it. But yeah, that's my opinion. I'm sticking to it for today because it may change tomorrow. So thank you for being here for this installment of the Life Science Health System reading. This was chapter 5. We're going to discuss chapter 6 next week. This is one of my favorites, one of my favorite subjects of all time, just the immense wisdom of the body. The body knows better than you. And we're going to learn all about that next week. So I can't wait to have that conversation. Please stay tuned. Join the Radical Health School. It's free right now. It may be behind a paywall soon, but I want to get people in there. We have a nice community already. There's a few courses in there. There's great comments happening in the community section on the posts. So thank you everybody for being involved in the Radical Health School. Give a like and a subscription to the School of Unlearning YouTube channel. We're going to have more content, unlearning some of the common teachings about health, life, disease, etc., and other content on other exciting things. So stay tuned. Thank you again. We'll see you next time.